I didn't correct her when she called me just a welder. I let her think that. I smiled, folded my hands on the table, and let her keep talking. That was 3 months before everything fell apart for my family and came together for me in a way I never could have scripted. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I do, and what my family thought about what I do, and how those two things collided in the most spectacular way I have ever witnessed in my 31 years on this earth. I own a steel fabrication company. I started it when I was 24, with $11,000 I had saved, working double shifts at a shop in Ohio, a used MIG welder I bought off a guy named Dennis who was retiring, and a rented garage bay that smelled like motor oil and old coffee. I didn't have investors. I didn't have a business degree. I had a certification from a trade program I completed in 14 months, a reputation for clean welds and showing up on time, and an absolute refusal to let anyone tell me this wasn't a real career. My mother never saw it that way. She wasn't cruel about it. That's the thing that made it harder, actually. She wasn't mean. She was just quietly, consistently ashamed. She'd ask how work was going, and before I could finish answering, she'd pivot to asking whether I'd thought about going back to school. She'd introduce me at church as my daughter who does some kind of metalwork thing. She told her friends I worked in construction, which is technically true, but the way she said it with that small pause before the word communicated everything she didn't say out loud. My sister was different. My sister knew exactly what she thought and had no problem saying it. She is 3 years older than me. She has a degree in communications, a job at a marketing firm, and a very strong opinion about what constitutes a respectable life. She's never been mean to me in an obvious way either. She's the kind of person who delivers insults wrapped in concern. "I just worry about you," was her signature opener. "I just worry about you working in those conditions. I just worry about what that does to your body long term. I just worry that you're limiting yourself." She got engaged 11 months ago to a man whose family owns a real estate development firm. Old money, serious money. The kind of family that has their name on a building downtown. My mother called me the day after the proposal and spent 45 minutes talking about his family's background, their house, their connections, their vacation property in Vermont. She said, "This is a real opportunity for our family, you know. We need to make a good impression." I didn't ask what she meant by that. I should have asked. 4 months after the engagement, my mother called on a Tuesday night. I was at my desk reviewing a bid for a structural steel package on a commercial building going up outside Nashville. I had 3 employees at that point. A 4th I was about to hire, and more work than I could comfortably manage, which is the kind of problem every small business owner prays for in year 2 and takes seriously in year 7. "I need to talk to you about the engagement party," my mother said. "Okay," I said. She paused. I heard her take a breath the way she does when she's about to say something she has already convinced herself is reasonable. "Your sister is nervous about you coming." I put my pen down. "She loves you," my mother said immediately. "You know she does. But his family is going to be there. His parents, his grandmother, his cousins. His father is they're very established people. And your sister just thinks, and I agree with her, that it might be better if you sat this one out." "Sat it out," I said. "Just the party. You'll be at the wedding, obviously. But the party is it's a first impression situation. And she's worried that when people ask what you do, and they will ask, it's just not." "Not what?" I said. "It's not the kind of thing that fits with the evening she's trying to create." My mother's voice had gotten softer, the way it does when she's hoping softness will substitute for logic. "She doesn't want anyone making you feel uncomfortable either. It's really about protecting you." I was quiet for a moment. I looked at the bid on my desk. The number at the bottom had 6 figures in it. "Okay," I said. "You're not upset?" I said, "Okay, Mom." I hung up and sat there for a while. Not crying, not angry, exactly. More like that feeling you get when something you already knew gets confirmed out loud. A kind of flat, final settling. I had known for years that my family saw my work as something to manage around, rather than celebrate. Hearing it stated plainly, in the context of protecting a first impression with strangers, just made it concrete. I went back to the bid. I adjusted a line item. I sent it before midnight. The engagement party happened on a Saturday in March. I spent that day at my shop, which I do most Saturdays anyway. I had a custom railing project for a restaurant in a renovated building downtown, welded steel, blackened finish, very specific tolerances because the stairs were a non-standard pitch. I had been looking forward to it. I put on a podcast and worked for 6 hours straight, and went home and ate pasta, and watched a movie, and felt mostly fine. My mother texted me a photo from the party. My sister in a yellow dress, her fiancé's arm around her, both of them laughing. She looked beautiful. I texted back a heart emoji. My sister never texted me at all. 2 weeks after the party, I got a call from my project manager about a new contract opportunity. A developer was putting up a mixed-use building retail on the ground floor. Apartments above, rooftop terrace. They needed a fabrication company for the structural steel package and the architectural metalwork. Railings, stairs, canopy frames, custom entry gates. The kind of project I had been building toward for 3 years. My project manager had spoken with the general contractor. He sent me the specs. I spent a weekend on the estimate and submitted a proposal that I was proud of. Competitive on price, detailed on scope, with a portfolio section that showed 3 comparable completed projects. I got a call the following Thursday. We had the contract. The developer's family name was in the company name. I saw it on the contract documents. It registered the way familiar things sometimes do, like a word you've seen 100 times that suddenly looks strange on the page. I thought, I know that name from somewhere. Then I got busy with mobilization planning and forgot about it. I met the project superintendent on site in April. I met the architect the following week. There were emails with the developer's project coordinator, a woman named Patricia who was extraordinarily organized and replied to everything within the hour. I never met the principal of the development company in those early months. That's not unusual. Owners send representatives. That's what representatives are for. My crew started on site in May. We were running steel for the main stair core, which is always the critical path item on these jobs because everything else gets built around it. My lead fabricator, a guy who had been in the trade for 20 years and had the kind of institutional knowledge that no certification can teach, told me the stair geometry was tricky, but he liked the challenge. We worked it out over 2 evenings at a whiteboard in my shop. When we installed the first flight of stairs, the superintendent walked it and said it was the cleanest work he'd seen on a project this size. I said thank you and wrote it down in my site notebook, because I write down good news the same way I write down problems. My sister called me in June. This was the first real conversation we'd had since the engagement party situation. She didn't mention the party. She told me about the wedding venue, a historic estate about 40 minutes outside the city. She told me about the florist and the caterer and the dress, which apparently required 3 fittings. She told me her future mother-in-law had very specific opinions about the centerpieces. What does she do? I asked. His mother? She's on the board of a couple of nonprofits, my sister said. She used to be in interior design. His father runs the company, obviously. What company? The development company, the real estate thing. They've been doing it for 30 years. She said the company name. I held the phone away from my face for a second. I looked at it. I put it back. That's interesting, I said. Why? No reason, I said. The centerpieces sound nice. I want to be honest about what I did next because I think it matters. I did not call anyone. I did not tell my project manager. I did not mention it to my sister or my mother. I went to my shop and I kept working on the project the same way I had been working on it. And I made sure every piece of metalwork we fabricated and installed was exactly right, because that's what the contract required, and that's what I do. I didn't do it to set anything up. I did it because it's the only way I know how to work. The wedding was in September. I was invited to the wedding, as promised. I bought a dress that I felt good in dark green, knee length. The kind of thing you can stand up straight in. I drove myself. I got there early because I'm always early. The venue was genuinely beautiful. Old stone building, ivy on the walls, a garden set up with white chairs in rows. I found my place card. I was at a table near the back, which I noted and then let go. The ceremony was short and moving. My sister cried. Her fiancé cried. Even I felt something shift in my chest, which surprised me. Whatever my family's complications are, she was happy. I could see that plainly. The cocktail hour was on the terrace. I got a glass of wine and stood near the railing and looked at the garden below and thought about the railings I had installed on the project, which were now done and had been signed off with 0 punch list items, which is a thing you dream about on a job that size. "Excuse me," said a voice beside me. I turned. It was a man in his late 60s, silver-haired, well-dressed, with the kind of ease that comes from having occupied rooms like this one for a long time. A woman the same age stood with him, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry to bother you," the man said, "but Patricia mentioned you might be here. You're the one who runs the fabrication company." I looked at him. "I'm the bride's sister," I said. "I know," he said. He extended his hand. "I'm the groom's father." We shook hands. I watched something shift behind his eyes, the same thing I had felt when my sister said the company name on the phone. Recognition clicking into place. "She didn't tell us," he said. It wasn't accusatory. It was almost wondering. "She never mentioned." "No," I said. "She didn't." His wife reached out and touched my arm. "The staircase," she said. "I was on site last week for the ownership walkthrough. I asked Patricia who fabricated it. She said your company." She shook her head. "It's extraordinary work. The geometry alone, my husband said it was the most technically complex element of the whole building." "Thank you," I said. "My lead fabricator deserves most of that credit." "Patricia said you were on site every week," the man said. "That you came in on a Saturday to troubleshoot an installation issue with the canopy frames. It was a connection plate problem. We caught it early." "Most contractors don't catch things early," he said. "Most contractors wait until it's someone else's problem." He looked at me for a moment. "How long have you been running the company?" he asked. 7 years, I said. "How many people?" 5 full-time. 3 that we bring on per project." He nodded slowly. His wife was still looking at me with that same expression, and I understood it now. It was the look of a person recalibrating something. "Your sister never mentioned any of this," he said again. "No," I said. "Why not?" I took a sip of my wine. "I think she was protecting you from having to pretend to be impressed," I said. He was quiet. His wife made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "I would not have had to pretend," he said. Across the terrace, I saw my mother. She was watching us. I saw the exact moment she recognized who I was talking to, because her face did something complicated and fast. She started moving toward us. "She's coming," his wife said, watching my mother cross the terrace. "She looks alarmed." "She's fine," I said. My mother arrived with the energy of someone who has decided to take control of a situation she doesn't fully understand. She said hello, called him by his first name, shook both their hands, and then glanced at me with an expression that was trying to communicate about 14 things simultaneously without actually communicating anything. "I see you've met my daughter," she said. "Yes," he said. "We were just talking about her company. The fabrication work on the Meridian project." My mother blinked. "She didn't tell you?" he said. No, she does some metal work. She's been our primary fabrication contractor on our largest current project," his wife said pleasantly. "The structural steel, the stairs, the architectural elements, all of it. Your daughter's company did extraordinary work." My mother looked at me. I looked at my wine glass. "I had no idea," my mother said. "Neither did we that she was family," he said. "We knew her company. We knew her reputation. We just didn't know the connection." He glanced at his wife. "Funny thing, isn't it?" "Very funny," his wife said, in a tone that suggested she didn't entirely find it funny. My mother said, "She never told us about that project. She never said." "She's modest," he said. He said it like it was a compliment. The way he said it, standing straight, looking at my mother directly, it landed the way I think he intended it to land. My sister found us 20 minutes later. She came around the corner from the garden with her new husband and 2 of his cousins, laughing about something, bright and beautiful in her wedding dress. She saw me standing with his parents, and her face did the same complicated fast thing my mother's had done. "There you all are," she said. "We've been getting to know your sister," his mother said. "She's been telling us about her company." My sister looked at me. I looked back at her. I didn't say anything. "She's very accomplished," his mother said. Did you know she's been running her own business since she was 24? 7 years. 5 full-time employees. I knew she had her own thing, my sister said carefully. Her own thing, his mother repeated. The pleasantness in her voice was unchanged, but there was something precise and intentional in the repetition. She designed the stair system for our Meridian building, 12-foot spans, non-standard pitch geometry. The engineer said most fabricators would have had 3 RFIs on that one scope item alone. She had none. We're very proud of her, my mother said, in a voice I had never heard her use before. Something about it made my chest ache a little. Not because it was false, I think she meant it. Right then. In that moment, but because of all the years it had taken to get here. My sister looked at me again. You never told me, she said. You never asked, I said. Not harshly, just plainly. His father put his hand briefly on my shoulder. We'll talk more at dinner. We have questions about our next project. We're breaking ground on a mixed use in the spring, and we'd like to discuss fabrication scope early this time. Much better to start those conversations before the general gets involved. He and his wife moved off toward other guests. My mother drifted after them, pulled by some social gravity. My sister and I stood on the terrace. Her husband gave us a look and moved tactfully away. I didn't know, she said. I know. I thought you worked for someone. I work for myself, I said. I have for a long time. Why didn't you tell us? I thought about how to answer that. There were several true answers. I chose the most direct one. Because you didn't invite me to your engagement party, I said. Because you were embarrassed by what you thought I did. And I figured if you couldn't be proud of me without knowing the financials, then knowing the financials wasn't going to fix the actual problem. She looked at me for a long time. Her eyes filled. I'm sorry, she said. I know. I really am. She stopped. I had this picture in my head of what things were supposed to look like, and I let it matter more than it should have. Yes, I said. You did. Can you forgive me? I looked at her. She was still beautiful. She was still my sister. Underneath all the picture she had in her head of how things were supposed to look, she was the person who used to sit on my bed when we were teenagers and talk until 2 in the morning about everything and nothing. Yeah, I said. I can. But I need you to actually see me. Not the version of me you can be proud of because someone in a good suit said something impressive about my staircase. Just me. The version who's been doing this work for 7 years, whether anyone noticed or not. She nodded. She wiped her eyes very carefully, because of the makeup, and that small, practical gesture made me love her more than any of the other things she'd said. I see you, she said. We stood there for a minute. Below us, the garden lights had come on, small and warm against the early September dark. His dad is going to offer you a contract, she said. Probably. Is it going to be awkward? It's going to be professional, I said. That's what I do. She laughed a little. You always did the thing you said you were going to do. Someone has to, I said. We went inside for dinner. I was moved to a different table. His mother arranged it, I think. Though no one said so explicitly. I sat near the front, next to his parents and 2 of his colleagues from the development side. We talked about steel prices and supply chain issues and a neighborhood on the east side of the city that everyone thought was undervalued. His father had strong opinions about concrete forming systems, and I had stronger opinions about them. His mother told me about a residential project they were considering and asked if I did custom residential work. I told her I preferred commercial but could refer her to 2 fabricators I trusted. It was the most normal dinner I had had with my family in years, even though half the people at the table weren't technically my family yet. My mother found me before I left. She caught my arm near the coat check, and she held it with both hands the way she used to when I was small, and she was trying to make sure I was paying attention. I owe you an apology, she said. Mom. No. Let me say it. She squeezed my arm. I have been so worried, for so long, about what things looked like, about what other people thought, about what box you fit into, and you just went ahead and built something real while I was worrying about boxes. She shook her head. I'm sorry, it took strangers telling me for me to see it. It's okay, I said. Is it? I thought about it. It will be, I said. She hugged me. She smelled like her perfume, the same one she'd worn my entire life, and I held on for a second longer than I usually do. On the drive home, I had the windows down. It was cool enough to need a jacket, but I hadn't brought one, and the air coming through felt sharp and good. I went over the Meridian project in my head, the way I always do after a milestone. What we did right, what I'd do differently, what I learned. The stair geometry really had been something. I was glad we'd taken the time to whiteboard it. I made a note to tell my lead fabricator that his name had come up, specifically, at a wedding. He would find that amusing. I thought about my sister's question. Is it going to be awkward? And my answer, it's going to be professional. It was the truest thing I said all evening. Not because I was shutting anything down, not because I was holding a grudge or keeping anyone at arm's length, but because professional is what I am, in the deepest sense of the word. It's not a shell. It's not a defense. It's just what I built, over 7 years, out of $11,000 and a rented garage, and an absolute refusal to let anyone tell me this wasn't a real career. His father called my office the following Tuesday. He spoke with my project manager and set up a meeting for the following week to discuss the spring groundbreaking. The project was a 6-story mixed-use in a neighborhood I knew well. The scope was bigger than Meridian. The timeline was aggressive, which I like, because aggressive timelines require tight coordination, and tight coordination is where good fabricators separate from mediocre ones. I took the meeting. I brought my project manager and a copy of our Meridian closeout report, which documented our schedule performance, our zero-punch list final walkthrough, and our safety record for the duration of the project. I had put that report together myself over 3 evenings, because I believe in documentation, and I believe in being prepared. His father read it while we sat across from him. He didn't rush through it. He asked 2 questions. Then he set it down and looked at me. "When can you start on the estimate?" he said. "I'll need the structural drawings and the architectural intent package," I said. "If I have those by Friday, I can have a preliminary number to you in 10 days. Patricia will send them this afternoon." We shook hands across the table. Walking out, my project manager said quietly, "Did you know who he was? Before the wedding?" "I knew the company name," I said. "I didn't put it together until my sister told me." "And you just kept working? What else would I do?" He thought about that. Most people would have said something. Used the connection. "I didn't need the connection," I said. "The work was already good." He nodded. We walked to the car. The street outside was ordinary and bright and smelled like coffee from a shop on the corner. Somewhere 3 blocks over a crew was pouring concrete. I could hear the truck. I stood for a second and listened to it before I got in. There's a thing that happens, sometimes, when you've been doing work that no one notices for long enough. And then it gets noticed. People expect you to be changed by it, to be vindicated, or relieved, or hungry for more of the same. And maybe some of that is true, but mostly what I felt, walking to that car after that meeting, was the same thing I feel at the end of a good installation day, a clean, settled sense of things being where they belong. The staircase was in the building. The geometry was right. The welds were clean. Someone else could have the opinion that it was impressive, or not. I already knew what it was. I knew what I was, too. I had known for a long time. That part was never in question.